The episode opens where the Premier refused to let us breathe in the wreckage of the gullet. Bodies float, ships burn, dragons patrol the smoke, and the victory already feels rotten. That is important, because Episode 2 is not structured like a clean triumph. It begins with Team Black technically winning a battle, but emotionally losing the person who is supposed to carry its future. Vale brings Jace home on Moondancer. The Dragon Keepers take his body from the saddle, and the episode slows down enough to make his death feel less like spectacle and more like a family catastrophe. Rhaenyra enters the chamber and freezes. At first, she does not behave like a queen receiving news. She behaves like a mother whose mind refuses the fact in front of her. She asks what he has done, as if Jace could still answer. That is the first crucial choice of the episode. Her grief is already looking for an author, a person, a decision, a betrayal. Then the court becomes dangerous. Sir Laurent kneels and offers his life, but Rhaenyra rejects the easy sacrifice. She asks what good his death would do. Will it wake her son? That line matters because the episode is telling us something about punishment. Rhaenyra is not satisfied by symbolic guilt yet. But by the end of the episode, symbolic guilt is exactly what she will be forced to use. She turns on everyone who knew Jace had acted and stood by. The chamber becomes less a funeral room and more the first hearing of a new political order. The question is not simply who killed Jace. The question is, who gets turned into the lesson? Then the episode moves to the aftermath on the shore. Corsairs are hunted down, the dead are everywhere, and Corlys survives in the ruins of the fleet that was supposed to define his power. The gullet has not only killed Jace. It has burned away the illusion that Naval Command, Dragon Command, and Family Command are separate problems. Alan and Adam finding Corlys alive should feel like relief. Instead, it feels like the sea snake waking up into a world where the old family structure no longer works. Corlys can still give his sons a name. He can still recognize them. But he cannot give them back the fleet, the certainty, or the version of House Velaryons that existed before the battle. That is why this section matters beyond emotion. Episode 2 is quietly rebuilding the political map out of survivors. Rhaeda's section is even more loaded. She reaches the Vale with Sheepstealer in the background, and Jane Arryn immediately understands the problem. Rhaena wants refuge, but what she brings is not just herself. She brings a wild dragon, a dead prince's shadow, and a question nobody at Dragonstone will be able to ignore forever. Jane's answer is cold but practical. She may not welcome Rhaena, but she cannot stop a dragon from roosting where it pleases. That is a very Westerosi sentence. Everyone has law until a dragon lands nearby. But Rhaena is not just a dragon rider now. She is a political hazard. If Jace's death needs a simple explanation, Rhaena is close enough to become part of it. This does not mean Rhaenyra will blame her. The better reading is more uncomfortable, even if nobody says it aloud. Sheepstealer now carries the memory of the battle into every room Rhaena enters. Meanwhile, Daemon is doing Daemon things in the Riverlands, which is to say public violence, with excellent posture. The camp around him is celebrating. Heads are on stakes. Men chant. The Riverlands army looks like a weapon that finally has momentum. A Daemon receives news of Jace, and the performance changes. Suddenly, the conquest he wanted has a cost that reaches into his own house. His exchange with Alice also matters. She helped him gather power, and now she wants Harrenhal. Daemon refuses in the language of political reality, but the scene has the shape of a debt being postponed, not erased. That is the strange thing about Episode 2. Nearly every alliance works for about 5 minutes, and then the bill arrives. When Daemon returns to Dragonstone, he finds Hugh and Ulf in armor, not where they were supposed to be. Their presence is almost funny, but the joke has teeth. The dragon seeds were supposed to solve a military problem. Instead, every scene with them reminds us that new power creates new discipline problems. Daemon insults them like a commander trying to bully uncertainty into obedience. Stay wide. Keep watch. Do not think. Do not have ideas. That is funny because it is Daemon. It is frightening because he is not wrong about the risk. Then we get one of the most important emotional turns of the episode. Rhaenyra in bed, exhausted, almost unable to continue. This is where Daemon does something more dangerous than killing. He gives her a reason. He tells her about the vision at Harrenhal, about the Song of Ice and Fire, about the future Viserys, once described. And suddenly, the throne is not only ambition, it is obligation. That is the hinge. If Rhaenyra takes King's Landing only for revenge, the story is simple. If she takes it because grief, prophecy, inheritance, and duty have collapsed into one command, the story becomes much more dangerous. The episode keeps cutting to King's Landing because Alicent is trying to turn surrender into mercy before the city collapses into chaos. Alicent knows Aemond is gone. She knows Aegon has fled. She knows the official green structure is becoming a shell with nobody inside it. Her problem is that surrender is not a private feeling. It needs soldiers, gates, timing, and people willing to call treason something else. That is why Helaena becomes so important. Alicent can plead, scheme, and negotiate, but Helaena is still the queen in the room that matters. The conversation in the garden is one of the episode's quietest power scenes. Helaena asks whether there will be a battle. Alicent says no, they will let Rhaenyra in and flee. But the scene is not only about escape. Alicent admits the original foundation of the Green Cause may have been a mistake, or at least something she can no longer say with certainty. That is a massive admission. She cannot undo the war, but she can still try to save Helaena from being devoured by it. Helaena saying she might like to keep chickens is almost absurdly gentle, and that is why it hurts. She is imagining a life so small and peaceful that it feels impossible inside this story. Then the battlement scene turns Helaena from victim into authority. The guards have standing orders to fire at dragons. Alicent cannot simply override that, but Helaena can. The defenses stand down because the queen says so, not the king. Not the Prince Regent, the Queen. That is one of the episode's sharper ironies. Helaena does not want power, but for one crucial moment, the city survives because she uses it. At the same time, Aemond arrives at Harrenhal and turns the episode into horror. Dagar burns the castle, soldiers run, stone collapses, and Aemond walks through the destruction like he is trying to become the nightmare everyone already thinks he is. He kills Simon Strong, and his sons even after the practical resistance is gone. That is the point. This is not strategy anymore. It is punishment looking for witnesses. But then the episode gives Aemond a brutal little reversal. He is stabbed, bleeds, crawls toward Alice, and collapses at her feet. The man who arrives as Apocalypse ends the sequence as a wounded boy looking up at the one person in the room who does not flinch. That makes Alice dangerous in a different way. She does not defeat Aemond. She survives the moment and becomes the person standing over him when his power stops working. Then the dragons descend on King's Landing. This is where the episode finally becomes the thing the title promises. Syrax, Caraxes, Vermithor, and Silverwing come over the city, and the small folk run, because for them, this is not a prophecy or a claim. It is dragons over their roofs. Rhaenyra lands and says she has come to make things right. That line is sincere, but the episode immediately starts testing it. Daemon cuts through the remaining resistance inside the Red Keep. Rhaenyra watches him kill. She is not doing the killing yet, but she is walking behind it. That distinction will not last. Then comes the throne room beat, and this is one of the strongest images of the episode. Daemon opens the doors. The Iron Throne is empty. Rhaenyra enters, takes his hand for a moment, and then her attention slips away from him. Her eyes move around the room. She steadies herself. She continues toward the throne. That moment is not simply ambition. It is memory, destiny, grief, childhood, inheritance, and danger, all pulling on her at once. Maybe Daemon thinks he is guiding her into power. But for a second, the throne seems to be pulling harder than he is. The gold cloaks then complete the political reversal. Sir Luther Largent remembers Daemon, names Rhaenyra the true heir, and the guard line breaks. Early reactions to the episode are already focusing on how strangely easy the Red Keep falls, but that ease is the point. The city has not been conquered by one sword fight. It has been hollowed out before Rhaenyra arrives. Aegon is gone. Aemond is gone. Alicent has opened the door. Helaena has stopped the scorpions. The Gold Cloaks choose their old commander. The regime collapses because too many people decide it is already over. But Rhaenyra knows the throne is not hers yet, and Daemon knows why. They need a body. They need a public break with the old power. Aegon is gone, so the episode gives them Otto Hightower. That discovery is almost wickedly theatrical. Otto has been hidden in the black cells, bearded, weakened, dragged out like the old architecture of the war-made flesh. Rhaenyra cannot execute Aegon. She cannot execute Aemond. So Otto becomes the nearest available symbol of everything that stole her throne before the war even had a name. This is where the episode gets morally interesting. Otto is not innocent, but executing him is not only justice, it is political theater. Daemon understands that instantly. If she wants to rule, she must show she does not waver. Rhaenyra does waver. That matters. The scene is not staged as an effortless villain turn. She is shaking. She doubts whether she can do it. Then, Daemon gives her dark sister. That image changes the execution. It is not just Rhaenyra killing Otto. It is Daemon handing her the instrument of rule he understands best. Otto tries to speak of Viserys, and Rhaenyra shuts him down. She cannot allow him to reframe this moment through her father. If Viserys enters the room, the execution becomes grief. She needs it to become sovereignty. But the actual beheading is ugly, and is not clean. It is awkward, physical, and humiliating. That ugliness matters because power in this episode is never as elegant as its symbols. The throne is beautiful from a distance. Path to it is a hacked body and blood on the floor. Then Rhaenyra walks toward the Iron Throne through Otto's blood. Her reflection appears in it. That may be the episode's thesis, in one image. She is finally approaching what she was promised. But the mirror showing her the queen is made of Hightower blood. So, is Rhaenyra becoming a villain? Maybe. But the more interesting answer is that the episode refuses to make it that simple. She is not suddenly Maegor with better hair. She is a grieving mother, a claimant, a believer in prophecy, a political survivor, and now a ruler who has learned that mercy and legitimacy do not always arrive in the same room. The final image with Alicent and Helaena is what keeps the question alive. Alicent did help deliver the city. She tried to save her daughter. She expected some version of mercy or escape. Instead, she is brought before Rhaenyra and sees Otto's body. For a second, Rhaenyra seems to hold the gaze with something like pain. Then her expression hardens into grim dispassion. That is the real ending, not the throne. Not the execution, the face after the execution. Because now the question is not whether Rhaenyra has power. She does. The question is, what kind of queen power will make her become?